Hello, dear viewers. Welcome to the 11th episode of the series The Ledger. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single episode of this series in which the victims are cursed and turned into animals. You can also support us by liking the video and leaving your lovely comments. Enjoy the show.
I have come to my entries in many ways, dear reader. I have waited on doormats and hidden in luggage. I have been stolen, inherited, gift-wrapped, and thrown into a trash can before breakfast. But only once in all my centuries have I been purchased. Lot 44, private auction, closed room, final bid unchallenged. Watch her there in the back row, raising her paddle with that bored little smile, buying her own damnation at market price while lesser bidders fold around her. She thinks she is acquiring me. I let her think it. The invoice, after all, was always going to be paid by her. This is entry number 11. Her name was Isolde Vayne, and she was the wealthiest collector this city has ever produced. And the coldest. 34 years old. Magnificent. Untouchable. With a streak of silver in her black hair like a crack in dark marble. She signed for me the way she signed for everything, without reading the terms. Understand her flaw precisely, dear reader, for it was not greed. Greed wants more. Isolde wanted away. Every treasure she bought was locked where no hand could reach it. No eye could see it. No breath could fog its glass. Including, in the end, the people who loved her. She did not collect things. She buried them alive in splendor. She carried me down into her true home that night, the vault. Not a room, dear reader, a kingdom. A cathedral of black marble beneath the city, ringed with glass cases of gold, sealed by a steel door heavier than most houses, roofed by a dome of glass that let her look up at a sky she never intended to touch. Every object in that gallery was priceless, and every object was a prisoner. She walked through it the way a warden walks the block, proud, unhurried, and utterly echoingly alone. But I must show you one thing before the ink begins, because everything that follows turns upon it. In the very center of that treasury, on its own black pedestal, under its own glass dome, sat the single worthless object Isolde Vayne owned, a small ceramic bird, chipped, faded, worth nothing at any auction on earth. It had sat on her grandmother's windowsill when Isolde was a girl back when she was poor and loved and unafraid of open windows. She kept it under glass like everything else she treasured. That, dear reader, was always her tragedy in miniature. She could not tell the difference between protecting a thing and imprisoning it. She set me on the lectern and opened me a collector, examining her acquisition, and my golden ink rose to meet her, writing her name in letters she would have paid millions for. I sold, and beside it, my brush drew her true portrait, a dragon, coiled and winged, wrapped around what it owns. She leaned closer. She studied the drawing the way she studied provenance papers. I felt her pulse through the lectern. Dear reader, and I will record here what I found in it, not fear, recognition. And then Isolde Vayne did what no entry in all my pages had ever done before her. She laughed. Head back, eyes bright, delighted the laugh of a woman who has opened a sealed crate and found exactly what the catalog promised. A dragon. Wings, fire, armor, centuries. Where the serpent wept and the rabbit ran, Isolde read her sentence and heard a bargain. Best purchase I ever made, she told the empty vault. I have been feared for 1,000 years, dear reader. I confess that being approved of was new. She fetched a glass of wine, the good vintage, the one she saved for closing deals, and she raised it to me across the lectern. A toast, to me. Chin high, eyes steady, utterly composed. A queen accepting a crown from a servant. I want you to remember this image, dear reader, exactly as I recorded it. Isolde Vayne standing in the tomb she built for her own life, thanking the book that had come to finish it. Even I did not laugh. Some ironies are too perfect to interrupt. The change began as heat. The air around her started to shimmer. Frost slid weeping down the glass cases, and on its pedestal her abandoned wine began very quietly to boil. She stood in the middle of it and turned her hand in the rippling air, curious, appraising, cataloging her own transformation as it arrived. Where my other entries fought the first symptom, Isolde inspected it for authenticity. She found it genuine, she was pleased. Her eyes went next, and they went gladly. The amber she was born with deepened, brightened, ignited molten gold flooding the iris as the pupils drew into tall reptile slits. Fire looking out of a woman's face, and her expression around those impossible eyes, dear reader, approval. The particular satisfaction of a collector upgrading to the original after a lifetime of owning prints. She had always had a dragon's eyes, truthfully. I merely completed the set. She rolled her sleeves back and held both arms out before her, palms up, and watched the scales come in crimson and gold, layered like jeweled plate, climbing her forearms with the slow luxury of something expensive being unwrapped. She turned her hands in the vault light to see them glitter. Better than anything in her cases, and she knew it. Magnificent, she whispered. It is the only compliment I have ever received from an entry mid-sentence, dear reader, and I record it here with a certain professional pride. And then she reached for the bird, perhaps to move it somewhere safer, even she could not have told you why. She lifted the dome, and her new hand armored taloned, strong enough to bend the vault door closed around the little ceramic bird with what she believed was gentleness. It came apart like sugar, shards and pale dust sifting between claws that would never again know how to be careful, pattering softly onto the black marble. The vault was silent. The most delicate hands of her acquisition had just made their first appraisal. Look at her face now, dear reader, and mark the moment well, for this is where Isolde Vayne's account truly opens. Not at the scales which she admired, not at the eyes which she approved. Here, watching the dust of a worthless ceramic bird drift through the cold light. Billions in gold stood untouched in every direction, and the only thing she had ever loved was on the floor, unpurchasable, unrestorable, gone, the triumph drained from her like heat from a dead hearth. Price, she discovered, is what you pay. Cost is what you lose. She had confused them all her life. She tried to say something then, her own name, a curse, a bargain, who knows. What left her throat was thunder, smoke and a roar that cracked the cases down both sides of the gallery, glass splitting, alarms dying somewhere in the walls. The voice that had closed 100 ruthless deals was gone. What remained could only burn. There is a clause in every contract she never read. Dear reader, the finest acquisitions cannot negotiate. They can only be kept. Her wings arrived like a verdict. They tore through the back of that tailored velvet blazer, the armor of every boardroom she had ever conquered, and unfurled wall to wall, crimson membrane and golden vein wider than the gallery itself. She turned to look back at them over her shoulder, and I watched awe and understanding arrive together in her golden eyes. Wings, dear reader, the gift of open sky given to a woman who had spent her fortune building a roof between herself and everything. Then she grew. The vault that had swallowed her footsteps now pressed against her spine. She crouched, hunched, folded her new vastness under the dome like a ship in a bottle, and her cases came down around her legs in cascades of glass and gold. Watch the scale of it, dear reader, the great collector outgrowing her own collection. Every wall she had ever paid for was suddenly precisely one size too small. It always was. She simply hadn't been large enough to notice. When it finished, a dragon stood in the ruin of the gallery. Crimson and gold, jewel-plated, horned, immense, the single most valuable creature in the world, standing knee-deep in everything money had ever bought her. The silver streak survived, a blaze of white scale above her left eye. The signet ring survived too, fused into the gold of her right foreclaw, the seal she once pressed into wax to close her deals, welded now into the very hand that closed the last one. My portraits, dear reader, are always faithful, ruthlessly so. And here's what the record must show, because my pages do not flatter and do not lie. She was not weeping. Look at that great golden eye, dry, blazing, exultant. The jaw drawn back in something no dragon should be able to do, and every collector can. A smile of ownership. She had wings. She had armor. She had forever. Every entry before her lost something in the changing and knew it at once. Isolde surveyed her transformation the way she surveyed a signed invoice, and found the goods as described. The grief, dear reader, was not cancelled. It was merely as she herself might put it on back order. She looked up through the glass dome at the storm, and for the first time in 20 years, Isolde Vayne wanted something on the other side of her own security, so she took it. She rose and shattered the dome like the lid of a jewelry box, glass and rain exploding around her, wings snapping open into the night up, out, through the one ceiling she had never meant to breach. The vault, the gold, the shards of a little blue bird, all of it fell away beneath her. For one perfect moment, dear reader, I will grant her this: no entry of mine has ever left the ground so gladly. And oh, how she flew! Above the towers, above the storm's shoulder, rain sheeting off jeweled scale, lightning for a backdrop magnificent past any treasure she had ever locked away. The whole glittering city spread beneath her like a collection she had not bought yet. She owned the sky that night, dear reader, completely and without paperwork. And the sky, as she was about to learn, is the emptiest vault of all. Nothing lives there. Nothing waits there. It holds exactly one item at a time. She came down to the roof of the tallest tower, her tower, as it happened, and looked upon her city at last from the outside of every window. And the city looked back and screamed, streets emptying beneath her, crowds scattering like dust from a crushed bird, searchlights pinning her against the rain while helicopters circled at a distance. Nothing dared to close. She was finally what she had always arranged to be, beyond reach, untouchable at last, in every direction. I did not build that loneliness, dear reader. I merely gave it a body and let the city hold up the mirror her vault never could. 3 nights, the record shows. 3 nights she haunted the skyline, and no roof would hold her, and no door would fit her, and no living thing came near. On the 3rd night, she went home, down through the broken dome, into the wrecked gallery, rain falling through the shattered glass onto her scales, and there, among the toppled cases and the spilled gold, the dragon curled herself around her hoard and grew still. Do you see it, dear reader? The one room in the world shaped to hold her was the one she had built herself, back when she thought the treasure was the point. The vault was never her fortress. It was her forecast. Every collector builds, sooner or later, the exact size and shape of their own solitude. Hers had simply been waiting for her to fit it. I found her at dawn by the pedestal, where the pale shards still lay scattered on the black marble, too small for anyone to have swept, too worthless for anyone to have stolen. Her great foreclaw, the one with the signet gold fused into it, rested beside them. One black talon extended toward the nearest fragment, and stopped. A claw that could open a bank vault like an envelope. Dear reader, hovering a breath away from a chip of painted ceramic it could never again pick up. She stayed that way a long time. Strength, she had finally learned, is just another kind of glass dome. Everything she could still touch, she could only break. And then 3 nights late, right on schedule, the invoice arrived. I watched it well in the corner of that vast golden eye, tremble on the jeweled scales and fall. One tear, the first and only of her account, shed not at the loss of her hands, her voice, her name, or her shape, but at the price of a bird worth nothing at all. Every entry pays. Dear reader, Isolde simply paid the way she had always done business, in full, after delivery, upon receipt of goods. I recorded the payment. The account of Isolde Vayne is closed. She is, I note for the permanent record, the only entry who ever thanked me. And already my pages turn to the next name, and after so much gold and thunder, dear reader, the ink has chosen something humbler. Somewhere in this city there is a woman of iron certainty who has never once in her long, loud life admitted to being wrong. She out-argues doctors, outshouts warnings, plants her heels against every road sign fate has ever offered her stubborn, "Dear reader." As the old saying goes, and you know precisely which animal finishes that sentence. My page already holds her portrait. Long gray ears rising through a tight bun, a lengthening muzzle mid-protest, hooves where pointing fingers used to be. Entry number 12 is coming, and this one will not go quietly. They never do, that is rather the point of them. Subscribe and be here when I open. After all, I would so hate for the next name I write to belong to someone who wasn't listening.